Boldwood presents Protector of Mercia, written by M.J. Porter and read by Sean Barrett. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. The Mercian Register, A.D. 833. In this year, King Wiglaf of Mercia and King Athelstan of the East Angles forged an alliance against the Viking raiders ravaging the kingdom of the East Angles and swore with oaths to always be allies. The Viking raiders captured the Isle of Sheppey but were soon driven from it by men of the Wessex king, King Ecbert. Chapter 1. Winter, A.D. 833, Tamworth. You knew? The words shoot like sack strikes from my mouth. I've been holding them tight for too long. I should have come to Tamworth from Kingsholm sooner. It should have been the first place I came to when Lady Cynehild first told the truth of my birth, when she told me that my father was King Beowulf, the king of Mercia, who died fighting against the kingdom of the East Angles 7 summers ago. Winflood watches me, eyes filled with sorrow I don't want to see. Has she always pitied me? Was our friendship little more than the sympathy of an old woman? Was she training me to become a healer like her because she knew I could never claim my birthright? I did, boy. I did, she confirms, her old thin lips downturned, her eyes hard and flecked with flint. You should have told me, I cry, wishing traitorous tears didn't fall from my eyes. I'm glad young Cuthred isn't here. We're alone in her workshop, and I'm grateful for that. I could have come upon her when she was busy tending to one of the frail within Tamworth. But for once luck has favoured me. If Cuthred saw me crying, I don't know what I'd do. The rain that's drenched me on my journey here hasn't helped, making it appear as though I'm wreathed in sorrow. Why? I watch Winflood as she settles before the hearth, holding out thin, almost translucent hands towards the leaping flames. It's cold, I realise that now. The heat of my fury has driven me onwards, despite the turning season. I sniff, and all I can smell is the scent of wet horses and churned mud. I stink of the cold. What good would it have done? Her words are far from apologetic. I suck in a much-needed breath, seeking some sort of clarity. Why have I come to demand answers from her? What's drawn me to this place? Is it that she's the only person who knows the true identity of my father? Or is it something else? Why am I here? I would have known the truth. My voice is roughened by sorrow. I realize at that moment my fear. She must hear it. We kept you safe. Her reply is barely heard above the rain drumming outside. No one is about in Tamworth. The streets are awash with running water and mud. Why, then, I consider, does she whisper even now? I wouldn't have been safe. The words are stark, and I feel my forehead furrow. You're the son of a king. I think she'll leave it there, but she turns away, looking down at her hands before she speaks again. The son of a king, many blame for the current state of affairs in Mercia. You would have also been blamed. Why would I? I wasn't his son when he was king. I was born before he became king, and before he even thought of becoming king. Ah, you've been made to think as the holy men would have it. Those words spit with more ire than the snapping of twigs in the heart of the fire. A son is a son. In the eyes of some, you would have been throne-worthy, an atheling. It wouldn't have mattered to many. It still won't. There's a caution there, one I don't like to hear. I shake my head and water pools from my cloak and down my nose. I lick it. I'm thirsty and angry. You can use it, you know. Now I understand all those tales she told me of long ago kings. I understand her too well, and a shiver of hope and dismissal ripples my spine. She didn't train me because she felt pity for my lost birthright. No, she kept me close so that, when the time came, she could make me Mercia's king. I'm no king, I counter, saying those words enough to assure myself I speak the truth. I am no king. I'll never be a king. I don't want to rule. I want to be Icel the healer, but I'll be content with Icel the warrior of Mercia. And yet I'm angry as well. I would have known the truth of my birth. Those decisions should have been mine to make. You're an eagle, not a sparrow, she counters, her words angrier. I eye her as I finally slip the sodden cloak from my shoulders and allow the water to stream onto the floor. There's a hook where other cloaks rest, and I place it on one, ensuring I don't make the others as wet as mine. I'm nothing. I settle before her, sinking gratefully to the stool and the heat of the fire, running a hand through my black hair, the one that does mark me with Mercia's eagle. But it is Mercia's, not mine. You're the son of a king. She reaches towards me. Her skeletal hands are a too vivid reminder that, should I want to claim Coenwulf as my father, I need to do it quickly, before she breathes her last, and there's no one to stand as witness to my claim. But who would accept the words of the old healer woman? Mercia is at peace with itself, almost. Mercia has recovered from the years of uncertainty, the years of too many kings, one after another, falling beneath the blade of the king of the East Angles, Athelstan, the king-killer. Mercia is whole and needs to be, for enemies surround her. Wessex to the south, the kingdom of the East Angles to the east, the Welsh to the west, and the Viking raiders who scurry along rivers, killing and taking people and treasure without thought, leaving bloodshed in their wake. I'm the son of my mother, who died birthing me. I force those words through my tight throat. I've witnessed how my mother died. I watched Lady Cynehild fight her bloody battle on the birthing bed, one she lost, for all her youngest son lives and, I hope, thrives. Her youngest son, Coenwulf. What will his life be like? Who'll protect him from the horrors of who he is and what he did? You're the son of Coenwulf, king of Mercia. You have a royal name, for all many have forgotten that. Once more the intensity in those words belies the slightness of her frame, the cold etched onto her features, as though it were a permanent tattoo, emblazoned there with needle and ink. Winflood is old, tired and weak. I see it all laid bare before me. What if she doesn't survive the winter? I've always been alone, but I'll be even more alone if she's no longer here. Edwin isn't my friend. I've shamed the men of Ealdorman Alston's warriors by taking them to the Isle of Sheppey. King Wiglaf's rage is intense. We've all been punished for that act of disobedience, for all we rescued a man who would have died otherwise. Lord Coenwulf, a traitor to Mercia. A man who thought to ally with King Ecbert of Wessex, or at least that's what we believe was to happen. What sort of man is Lord Coenwulf? He wasn't worthy of Lady Cynehild when they married to cement his bargain with King Wiglaf. He was her second husband. In turn, she had been my father's second wife. Lord Coenwulf will make a poor father to young Coenwulf and Coenwulf, two motherless boys. Yet his sister is wed to the king's son, Lord Wigmund. One day Lady Alflad will rule Mercia by the side of her husband. I foresee only that she'll be as fearless as the wife of King Offa. She'll be magnificent, for all her husband is a weak, mewling man, who'd sooner offer his sword to the enemy than defend his family and kingdom. There is no love lost between myself and Wigmund. We've butted up against one another too many times in the past. And Lady Alflad, I believe, suspects my true identity after her journey to Budworth to pay her respects at my uncle's grave on behalf of Lady Cynehild. Not from witnessing my uncle's grave, but from gazing at my mother's. We could never be friends, if that's the case. Not now. I understand so much more since Lady Cynehild informed me of my identity. I wish she hadn't. You'll protect Mercia. Winflood's still talking, and I try to listen to her words. You'll become her king. No fool, such as young Wigmund, will be able to do what you can. You must." She almost ends with a shriek, but I'm shaking my head, looking at the fire, focusing on the blue heart of the flame, which would presage warmth, but which reminds me only of the frozen world beyond the workshop. Rain might have turned the settlement of Tamworth to dark mud, but winter threatens. When the rain stops, the cold will arrive, and walking anywhere will be dangerous. Outside, it's white, blue, pale, pink and mauve. It's the winter, when it's light for a small part of the day and dark for all other times. I'm a warrior and a healer, able to stitch battle wounds, nothing more. I counter, quickly, swallowing against the spark of hope that Winflad's assertion places in the fire in my belly. What could I be if I only had supporters? Could I rule? Could I govern better than King Wiglaf? Perhaps not. But yes, certainly better than his son and the collection of sycophants who tied themselves to Wigmund and his mother, Queen Cynehild, the despised Ealdorman Sigurd amongst them. Surely Sigurd should be dead by now. He's old and twisted, but in his heart, not in his body. Winflad's cold hand on mine douses the flames more quickly than an iron blade at my throat. Your uncle Senfrith wanted this for you. But I'm shaking my head. My uncle didn't want it for himself. He certainly wouldn't have wanted it for me. He kept me safe. He did his duty. He could have told me himself if he'd wanted me to know. He could have built a collection of ealdormen and warriors around him, but my uncle was a loner. He always thought of Mercia and me, but not in the way Winflad thinks. He didn't want me to rule it. I know that for sure. My uncle didn't. I cut her short. I don't want it, and anyway, and this is I'm oath-sworn at Lady Cynehild's wishes. Oath-sworn? Winflad's hooded eyes narrow, thin tongue licking at her dry lips. Oath-sworn, she prompts when I offer nothing further. To her sons, Coenwulf and Coldwulf. They have a claim to the Mercian kingdom, a stronger one than mine. Before I'm even aware of what she's doing, Winflad is on her feet, her shoulders tight, her stance rigid. That bitch! The words thrum through her body, for all they're hissed with disgust. I feel my forehead furrow at such a reaction. Lady Cynehild and Winflad have long since reconciled. I thought them friends, not enemies. Winflad rounds on me to bend and grip my hand in her two hands, looking down at the scar from the sag's blade when I tried to heal my uncle in the woodlands close to the border with the Welsh kingdoms. It feels as though it were a lifetime ago. Her cold white fingers trace the edges of the wound. It's long since healed, but it's marked me more than anything else. This makes me Mercian. This makes me an eagle, but it's only skin deep. It doesn't meet my heart. She never wanted you to have anything. Spittle follows those words, her fingers continuing to trace the scar. I want to pull my hand back and cover the markings with my gloves, as I often do, but her grip's fierce. Her strength surprises me. She wasn't your friend, and you're not bound by an oath given to the conniving bitch. Your claim's stronger than her infant sons. You're the son of a king. Her sons are the sons of a son of a king. And what? She's bid you ensure her son is king one day? Now her words are deathly quiet, the menace making me shiver. I finally snatch back my hand and cover the markings by clenching my fist. She would have you fight for her sons when she wouldn't fight for you. She would have you lay down your life to enforce an entitlement that will bring you into conflict with others, and a claim that will do you little good but bring more scars to your flesh. Winflad paces as she speaks, no longer whispering. Outside, the sound of the thunderous rain intensifies. I look down, noticing where water encroaches through the doorway. There should be straw there to absorb the water, something to stop it from getting close to the hearth and compromising the ring of stones in which the wood snaps and crackles, a cheery counterpart to an unpleasant conversation. I gave my word, I murmur. She asked, and I gave it. And did you give it before you knew the truth of your... Her eyes blaze into mine. I shake my head. I won't answer that. She was a conniving, lying she-devil until her last breaths. My sharp intake of shocked breath has Winflood laughing. You thought her your friend. You thought her last moments a desperate request for you to shield children, athelings, that her disgraced husband will be unable to, should King Wiglaf even allow him to live after what he's done. Did you think to feel pity and sorrow for a dying woman? Well, I assure you, she was clearer in those final moments than at any time in the last 10 winters. She makes you a protector when she tried to force your uncle to send you from his protection. She demands from you everything that she denied you when you were a boy and needed others to ensure you gained what was rightfully yours. Winflood's eyes are wild, her fury bringing a glow to her skin that won't have been there since the warmth of the summer. She's enlivened, bold, and very, very scary. You won't do it, she barks, the words a screech louder than an eagle chasing its prey. You'll not do it. The boys will become nothing. Their parentage will be forgotten. They'll have no one to speak for them. Had I known her intentions, I would never have allowed you to grow close. I would never have gone to her aid when the birth of her first child approached. I would have let her and that child die, had I known of this. I hang my head low, tears threatening to spill once more. Her harsh words astound me. Your uncle would not have wanted this. He esteemed Lady Cynehild, but only because she was, for the duration of her first marriage, complicit in keeping your identity a secret. Your father, had he lived, wouldn't have expected this from you. I can assure you of that. Her words crack with fury. I came here to tell Winflood of my anger, to demand answers, to seek some understanding of the part she willingly played in concealing my identity, but this meeting will be more than that. I know it. Perhaps she fears it too. She asks me for something I can't give. I'm no king. I have no right to rule Mercia whether I will it or not. I came here to lay my anger at her feet, but instead she turns her rage on me. I can't deny my oath. I speak into the silence, my words resounding as though thunder echoes outside, along with the tumultuous downpour. I gave my word, admittedly before I knew the truth of my father's identity. I say, my voice softer. I'm not sure it matters. Had I known, I would still have been determined to protect the children. They are like I once was before I became a warrior. They are weak and powerless, and soon I imagine they'll lack even the protection of their father. I gave my word, and those children are defenseless. I'll protect them. I speak slowly. I want her to understand. As she kept me safe throughout all these years, I will do the same for those children. To not do so would make me a weak man, no matter my anger at Lady Cynehild for her cruel use of the information she kept from me, or at my uncle for failing to tell me when he evidently knew. At my father for not acknowledging me, and then dying before he could. Then why did you even come here? She crows, rage filling the workshop where I spent so much of my childhood. Why did you come here if you were only going to disappoint my dreams of many winters? Her chest heaves as I finally look at her, meet those familiar eyes, and see all that has been consistent until now in my short life. I stand. It was to say goodbye. And without looking back, I unhook my dripping cloak and stride from the place. Winflood makes no effort to stop me. Chapter 2. Icel! My name rings through the damp air from the too familiar voice, but head down, my cloak failing to shield me from the rain, I push onwards. I tense, fearing that Wulfheard will encourage his stallion Bada to race towards me, regardless of the mess of the flooding road. Only when long moments have passed do I appreciate that Wulfheard has made no attempt whatsoever. Perhaps he thinks I'm not whom he thought I was. Maybe he doesn't care. Tears sting my eyes afresh at this new betrayal. But I don't turn Brute's head and encourage Weena onwards, even when she tries to fight the leading rein and respond to Wulfherd's words. They must know one another of old. Fleeing from Windflood and Tamworth has brought me out in the teeming rain. I've taken Weena with me, my uncle's horse. If I never return to Tamworth, I must take responsibility for the animal. Unbidden, my thoughts tumble to the day of Lady Cynehild's death. My life has changed beyond all recognition since then. I thought of myself as one person, but I'm another, and I'm far from reconciled to it. I consider if this is how my uncle felt when my mother died, birthing me. At least he had my father, but then my father never claimed me, or so it seems. For had he called me his son, then I'd have long known, even known him better than that. My father, a king. The idea is outrageous, and yet so much makes sense now. Lady Cynehild's interest in me, or lack of interest, would be a better way of describing it. She always hated me, and yet she watched everything I did. She was my father's second wife once he became king, and was expected to birth an heir. Did Lady Cynehild hope I'd falter? Did she wish for me to make mistakes and embarrass the father I didn't know I had, but that she did? I struggle to understand her thinking. The conversation I once overheard between her and my uncle during that cold winter rumbles through my mind. She wanted me gone from Tamworth. She wanted my uncle to hide me away. Whether because of her failure in regards to an heir for the king, or because when she did have a child, she didn't want another with a prior claim. I wish I could hate her for that. But it's my father that I hate. He should have claimed me as his son no matter what. Why didn't he? I was a motherless child and he cast me aside. Yes, I realize he kept me close and denied his second wife's desire to be rid of me, whatever her reasoning. And he ensured I had what was required, but I needed to know him. I was deprived of truly knowing him. There are so many questions I'd ask him, given half the chance. I'd know why he took the kingdom of Mercia from the rightful king. I would know why he rode to war against the might of the kingdom of the East Angles without so much as a backwards glance. Did he even consider the possibility he'd meet his death there? Didn't he think he might make me an orphan if he met his death? Why? It's the only word that resounds in my head. Why? Icel! The cry is harsh and filled with fury. What the bloody hell are you doing? I look up, rain falling into my eyes to mask the traitor tears that fell when I was feeling sorry for myself, and meet the furious gaze of Wulfherd. Bada drips with rain, pooling onto the broken surface of the stone-built roadway, the gutters so alive with the downpour that they rumble as loud as a river. Go away, I growled at the older man, trying not to see the flash of pain in his eyes, the betrayal in them, and the confusion. What do you mean, go away? I'm your commander. You do as I order you to do. Where have you been? Or rather, why do you have Weena and Brute? It's obvious you've been to Tamworth, so where are you going now? Leave me alone. The words are leaden in my throat, but I must say them all the same, despite everything I've just thought. Wulfherd reaches across the gap between us and grips my arm. I shake him off, feeling the heat of his fingers on my chilled arm. I said, go away. I speak slowly, emphasizing the words as I knee Brute forward. Only Wulfherd keeps pace with us, Bada head down, obeying his master's commands. You've been like this ever since Lady Cynehild died, Wulfherd continues. I wish he'd leave me alone. You left Kingsholm without a word to anyone. I see you've been to Tamworth to collect Weena as well. Where do you think you're going? To Kingsholm. Why would you return to Kingsholm? The king's furious with Lord Coenwulf. As soon as he's well enough, it's believed he'll be banished, and the king will confiscate all of his lands. They even say that Lady Elflad will be given the settlement in her own name. The reminder of Lady Alfred, Coenwulf's sister and the wife of the king's son, is an unwelcome one. And what of his sons? I meet Wulfheard's eyes now, seeing the furrow of his eyebrows and the rain that drips from his nose. What of his sons? They're nothing to you. They're Lady Cynehild's sons, I cry, even though I want to hate her too. She's denied me of so much, and now expects me to give it freely. And because I'm a man of my word, I can't refute the final oath she extracted from me. The king will care for them. After all, his son is married to their aunt. Their grandfather was once a king, their great-uncle as well. I shake my head. I know what will happen to them. I foresee it only too well. It happened to me, and it'll happen to them, no matter the intentions of Lady Alfred. She's a strong-willed woman, but she's the wife of the king's son. One day she'll be queen. Someone, and possibly she's already realized this, will highlight how destructive the boys could be to her son's claim to rule Mercia. And Lord Coenwulf's a ruin of himself. If I thought him an arrogant, quick-to-rage man, when I cared for his father's horse after his father died an old man, he's 10 times worse now. He's wrecked. The king's son will do all he can to eliminate them. They are but small children. Should they die, no one will think of them. Should someone get their hands on them, one of the other ealdormen, then they'd be a sure way to counter the power of King Wiglaf and his family. Those children are in danger. Again confusion swamps Wulfheard's face. But he doesn't deny my argument, and that hardens my faltering resolve. Why should that concern you? What aren't you telling me, Icel? I'm your friend. The final word's plaintive. I dip my head and focus. My gloves are wet through. I can feel the dampness on my skin. You're my commander, as you said, when I ride with Ealdorman Alfstan's warrior band. You're not my friend. You have never been. King Wiglaf and Ealdorman Alfstan bid you train me to defend myself, and I don't deny that you did a very good job of it. But I'm not one of the warriors. I'm the Lord of Budworth. I should take up that position now. And yet you head towards Kingsholm and speak of the sons of Lord Coenwulf. Wulfheard's response is once more rational. I'm aware that he thinks much more clearly than I do. Silence falls between us, broken only by the sound of heavy rain falling and the rushing water in the blocked drainage channels to the side of the road. There is that as well, I confirm, meeting his eyes, ensuring mine are firm and offer no flicker of my inner turmoil. Icel, what's going on? The booming voice of Oswy cuts the air as he brings his horse into view. I'm aware that the rest of Ealdorman Alfstan's warriors have halted their journey. All I need now is for Ealdorman Alfstan to appear. Nothing. Leave me alone. The words aren't easy to say. I fought beside Oswy, and he's battled to protect me. I healed him and made him whole once more. Why is Wina with you? Once more confusion covers the other man's face. Wulfheard and Oswy's bewilderment is understandable, but I'm not accountable to them. My oath is to the king. She's my horse, I huff, wishing this was over. The winter days are short enough. I need to resume my journey. If you're Lord of Budworth, Wulfheard demands, and I can tell he's trying to be reasonable, why aren't you going there? Why do you head south? I'm going to speak for Lord Coenwulf before the king. The king knows what he plans to do. He's just waiting for Lord Coenwulf to be well enough to leave Mercia before banishing him. Don't tie yourself to Coenwulf. He's no friend of yours. Wulfheard's words are lucid and sensible, and they echo windfloods when speaking of Lady Cynehild. It's the children I must protect, I retort, aware that my voice screeches with defiance. I sound like a child, not a warrior and Lord of Mercia. Icel, it's not your role to protect those children. The king will see it done, no matter what happens to Lord Coenwulf. Do you plan on leaving Mercia with him? I don't think you want to do that. The children will remain in Mercia, I argue. I'm sure of it. And they must have protectors. Their aunt will guard them, and their other aunt, the young one, I forget her name. They'll be like brother and sister. And anyway, why, Lady Cynehild, what of her?" But I can hear the suspicion in Wulfheard's voice. "What did she say to you as she died? Why were you even there?" But I can't find the words. I hate her, miss her, and yet must abide by her wishes simultaneously. Conflict undulates through me, but I know what's right. I need to give voice to my oath to her, and yet I can't. I must be there. "Ealdorman Alstan's there. He'll speak for the children." Ealdorman Alstan's position is as untenable as Lord Coenwulf's. Both men will be banished. Coenwulf for his treason and Alstan for going to get him. Alstan is the ealdorman of Magonsaki to the north of Kingsholm, an unruly area at the best of times with its borders close to the Welsh kingdoms. The king will want a loyal man as his ally there. "No, they won't." Wulfheard dismisses my concerns. "King Wiglaf needs Ealdorman Alstan. The attack on the Isle of Sheppey by the Viking raiders shows how conniving those bastards are. While the king might be furious, he understands we were protecting Mercia with our actions. The same can't be said for Lord Coenwulf. His warriors are all dead, his wife as well, and he's an embarrassment to the king. He must act to protect the union forged between the two families. Better to forget about Lord Coenwulf and focus on his sister and the children." I think you'll be surprised just what the king thinks. "Why? What have you heard? What do you know, Icel?" It's not as though you're deep in the king's confidences, or even allowed to speak with him, other than when you rescue him from the enemy. King Wiglaf wants your blood, not your mind. Perhaps, but all the same. Then very well. Do what must be done. The men and I are sent to Worcester to escort Lady Alfled to Kingsholm. Think about what I've said, and I'll see you when we return." With no more words, Wulfheard turns Barda back towards the road, but Oswy lingers, his gaze keen. "These women, Icel, they know their worth. Lady Cynehild, the Queen, Lady Alfled. They make demands on men, and we strive to fulfill those requests. But in the end, we're not their creatures. We know what's right and wrong, as with you and young Edwin. I knew the Queen was wrong to belittle your accomplishments. I stepped aside from her control. I don't pretend it wasn't awkward, but it was the right thing to do. I can't deny that she glowers at me whenever I see her, but that is her problem, not mine. Icel, you know the right thing to do more than anyone I've ever known. Tread carefully, my friend." I linger, against my wishes, watching my fellow warriors ride on until they disappear beneath the thick clouds. And then, heart-hardened, I encourage Brute and Weena onwards to Kingsholm. I need to reach Kingsholm. I'll add my voice to those few who demand leniency for Lord Coenwulf. I must align myself against the Queen and Ealdorman Sigurd even more than now. And I know I must also see what Lady Alfled intends to do with regards to her nephews. Will she be swayed by her husband, Lord Wigmund, the king's son? Or will she be honourable, as I hope, though I fear I think too highly of her? With everything that's happened, she too might be desperate to distance herself from her brother's actions. Oswy is right. These women are ambitious, and they don't care if small children are cast aside in their efforts to maintain a hold on power. And that's what drives me. It's not love for Lady Cynehild, for I think in the end she didn't love me. Ultimately, she saw me as a means to an end, in much the same way that Winflad does. She thought I'd be king. Lady Cynehild hoped the very opposite. Why she told me the truth with her final words, I don't know. Was it to tie me even more tightly to her children when she knew she was dying? Did she know her husband would be cast aside? So many questions, and no answers, only the silence of the grave. But those children, well, they're like I was as a child, almost orphans, with one parent living who can't protect them, even if he wanted to. I'll be the shield between Coenwulf and Coenwulf, that their father can't be. Even if this brings me into conflict with the king, his wife, his son, and Lady Alfled. Even if it means I can never wear the warrior helm of Mercia's king, which by my birth I should be entitled to. Chapter 3. Kingsholm. My Lord Coenwulf. King Wiglaf's words are rich and booming. He speaks as the king of Mercia, for all is in the hall of Coenwulf, heir to his father, who ruled as King Coenwulf, and by rights the man who should be king. Coenwulf is a ruin of the man he used to be. I thought him bitter and twisted when his father died, and he alleged I killed his father's horse, an accusation for which he later apologized. But now he's truly broken. He might well have wed Lady Cynehild as part of an accord with King Wiglaf. It might have been a union neither had wanted, and yet, in the time since her death, I know he loved her, and I know he loves his children, even though he can hardly bear to gaze upon them. And King Wiglaf, he's grown in stature, and he's not the man who ran from the might of King Ecbert of Wessex. No, he's Mercia's warrior king. He's the man who's now held that position for longer than the two kings who ruled before him. He's powerful, he's respected, and he knows it. I eye him warily. I've learned to admire King Wiglaf. As a warrior, he inspires his fellow men. As a king, he's to be esteemed. As a man, he's beset by an overpowerful wife and a useless son. I suppose a man can't have every advantage before him, and Wiglaf certainly doesn't. And now he must contend with the matter of Lord Coenwulf, a man sworn to him, and yet who was captured by the Viking raiders while agreeing to meet King Ecbert of Wessex in secrecy. King Wiglaf has given Lord Coenwulf time to recover from his wounds gained on the Isle of Sheppey, and from the death of Lady Cynehild, but it could never be enough. I don't believe that Lord Coenwulf will defend his actions. I almost think he wishes himself dead. My Lord King. Lord Coenwulf cannot bow low for fear of falling, and yet he has two of his warriors, one of them my old childhood friend Edwin, to either side, so that they can support him all the same. His leg was badly broken by the Viking raiders, and allowed to mend at an odd angle. Our rescue of him wasn't gentle. On our journey through Kent, I was forced to re-break his leg and set it correctly again for fear he'd never walk without a limp. It's been slow to heal. Too slow. He might always limp, despite my attempts to prevent it. The hall at Kingsholm is the fullest I've ever seen it. More of Mercia's noblemen and women crammed into that small space than should be possible. I've found a gap not far from the door to the rear, but I can see well enough. Not that I truly wish to witness this. I would not observe the ruined man cast even lower, but King Wiglaf must punish him. I believe Queen Cynehild is even more eager to abuse the broken Lord Coenwulf. Now that Lady Cynehild is dead, Queen Cynehild has only her daughter by marriage, who could possibly claim as much respect as her. Cynehild and the Queen were always far from allies. I contemplate whether she exults in Cynehild's death. Perhaps I consider, if the child had died as well as the mother, she might. She's a cruel woman, always with both eyes on the future, and not just on the here and now. She must see the threat the young boys are to her grandson. You may sit, the king announces, his hand flicking to show servants should bring the Lord of Kingsholm a chair upon which to perch. If they don't do so, he'll fall, despite the support of his warriors. King Wiglaf's dressed in his finest clothes, gold and silver shimmering from his fingers and tunic. His cloak is thick, his boots shimmer at the end of thick woolen trews. He wears no warrior helm, but a fine coil of gold slithers through his greying hair, revealing his king here and no one else. His wife, the Queen, sits to his left. She's bedecked in so much finery that I fear she'll tumble if asked to walk far. The weight of the shimmering jewels at her ear and throat must be cold against her skin. Her face is twisted, her silver-threaded hair visible beneath the gauze material that covers it. She might look regal, but anger exudes from her, fingers tapping against the side of the wooden chair she sits within. Queen Cynehild can't take her eyes from Lord Coenwulf. She'd do better to mask her thoughts. I see them too clearly, and so will everyone else. In the distance, the wail of a child splits the air. I half turn, wincing, before I stop myself. The babe is well, perhaps hungry or dirty, but well. I don't need to leave this place to protect him and his brother. In my self-appointed role, the women caring for the motherless boys are far from welcoming to me. In this, it seems I lack all of the empathy I once knew when Windflood shared her secrets of healing with me. The sound has heads turning, all apart from mine. The king catches my eye, a perplexed expression on his face. He didn't expect to find me here. He's not alone. I didn't expect to find me here either. No doubt he assumes I'm with Ealdorman Alfstan's warriors, or perhaps even at Budworth, my estate. But not here, in Kingsholm. You've been called to answer the charges brought against you. The king quickly returns everyone to the present, talking over the wailing of the babe. That of treason. The words fall heavily and awkwardly, but the king hasn't finished. We must separate the unfortunate outcome of your attempt. Your capture by our enemy, Viking raiders, from what you intended, which was to speak with the King of Wessex, another enemy of Mercia. For all your wounds would perhaps be seen as punishment enough by some. I can't agree with that. Tell me, Lord Coenwulf, what did you hope to achieve? My Lord King? Coenwulf's voice is frail and little used. I was sent word that King Ecbert of Wessex wished to speak with me regarding the borders between Wessex and Mercia. As you know, there have been difficulties that extend far beyond the reach of the River Thames and include that of the Wansdyke. The land boundary is unruly and has been particularly so since King Ecbert's incursion inside Mercia. I thought it warranted my attention. They mask the problems on the southern border, where no river exists to act as a natural divide, and instead there is the Wansdyke. As I understand it, thanks to Wulfheard long ago, it's similar to Offa's Dyke, which divides Mercia from the Welsh kingdoms. It's a ditch and a slope, the slope facing northwards, as though to stop any from attacking that way. I don't know who built it. Perhaps the giants who constructed Londinium. If not, the Saxons, like me, under the guidance of a king long ago, in the far reaches of memory and history. And you decided to do so without referring the matter to me. Again, the words are bland. Both men are trying hard to remove the emotion from the meeting. King Wiglaf feels betrayed. I'm not sure that Lord Coenwulf can feel anything but sorrow for his dead wife and fear for his children. I did, my Lord King. I knew you were close to Londonwick. I hoped to contact King Ecbert, determine his intentions, and seek your advice. It wasn't my objective to act with deception. That single word fills the hall. I look up, catching sight of the many eagle-headed shields displayed on the hall's walls above the king's head. Kingsholm has long been the home of Mercia's kings. Coenwulf and then his brother, Coenwulf, both the first of their names. The men who once walked these boards throughout the last 30 winters and warmed themselves before the hearth knew their worth. I still struggle to understand why King Coenwulf relinquished his rights to the kingdom of Mercia. It doesn't help that I know my father, King Beornwulf, was the cause of it. My father. The thought sends a tremor of fury through my body. If he were here now, I'd kill him. I've no doubts about that. Perhaps Lady Cynehild as well. Both kept their secrets. Of my uncle, I can't decide. Grief for his death makes it impossible for me to hate him. Not when, of all those who knew my true identity, he was the one who cared for me the most. I've heard a different version of this event. Of course, I should have expected Ealdorman Sigurd to add his voice to the proceedings. The worm is entirely that. I can't be alone in watching the look of smug satisfaction that crosses Queen Sinethri's face at those words. Ealdorman Sigurd is attended upon by his grandson Sigigar, one of Lord Wigmund's allies. Indeed, Lord Wigmund's allies seem to fill the hall. I've seen Alfred and Humbert. No doubt there are more of these men and women that I didn't recognize who've cast in their lot with Lord Wigmund. I'm aware of that, Ealdorman Sigurd. The king isn't— Then you'll hear me speak, the old man demands petulantly. He's standing only just visible above the shoulders of those who sit. He gets smaller each time I see him, shrivelling up like a summer apple during the winter months. No doubt he'll taste as bitter. Indeed, Ealdorman Sigurd. Please share what you think you know. The king speaks with suppressed frustration. I can't believe the Ealdorman fails to hear the censure in those words, but he presses on all the same. I've been informed, my Lord King, that it was Lord Coenwulf who made overtures of friendship to the Wessex king. Not the other way round. He meant to ally with the Wessex king. His new marriage and the birth of his son had reminded him of all he'd lost. I perceive a flicker of unease cross King Wiglaf's face. The words of Ealdorman Sigurd are eminently feasible. King Wiglaf sees that clearly. If Ealdorman Sigurd lies, he's making it as probable as possible. And you have witnesses to these accusations? King Wiglaf speaks quickly before any murmur of unease can begin. My fists clench with outrage, revealing my unsuitability to be in King Wiglaf's position, even if I can claim just as much right to rule as Lord Coenwulf and his sons. Perhaps more right than King Wiglaf, even. Alas, only two, my Lord King. Lord Coenwulf's men were all murdered by the Viking raiders, as I'm sure you remember. I feel my forehead crease at those words. All but Edwin, and Edwin is loyal to Lord Coenwulf. He'd never speak out against him. Who then levels the accusation? And they'll speak? She will, my Lord King, yes. And so will he. Now my heart stills, my mouth too dry to swallow. I fear I know who'll be brought forth by Ealdorman Sigurd, and I'm not mistaken. Ealdorman Sigurd means to lay the most damning evidence against Lord Coenwulf first. I'd hate him, but his planning earns my grudging respect. The damned bastard has survived for decades at the Mercian court. He means to continue to do so. Lady Alflad. She's the wife of the king's son. She's Lord Coenwulf's sister, and the aunt to his two small sons, and yet I notice the smirk of triumph on the queen's face, and also on that of her sons. Lord Wigmund is a maggot to grind beneath my boots if only I had the opportunity, but I'm devastated that Lady Alflad steps forward to denounce her brother. I thought her better than this. I knew his actions would be an embarrassment, but this is too much. I eye her. She is, as ever, beautiful. My heart thuds loudly in my chest, and yet I loathe her as well. More and more. I'm realizing the double-edged blade that love and hatred can be. She shimmers with the wealth of her position, for all her face remains pale. I'm not convinced she's recovered from the birth of her child yet. She need not have travelled to Kingsholm, and yet she did, as soon as she could. It was her that Wulfheard and Oswy escorted to Kingsholm when I last saw them. Well, her and her husband. My Lord King, I'll speak of my brother's ambitions to drive a wedge between the ancient realm of the kingdom of the Huiche and that of the rest of the kingdom of Mercia. She talks without inflection as she stands before all assembled. I can't believe what I'm hearing. She sounds nothing like the girl I once knew who berated her brother for his anger towards me. I've been aware of her at Kingsholm, but only in passing. We've managed to avoid one another. She's been secluded with her sickly son. I've been no company for anyone. Wulfheard and Oswy didn't stay, and neither did they approach me. I'm strangely grateful they left me alone. Perhaps she now seeks a means of gaining revenge against her brother for such a poor marriage that even the progeny brought forth from it fails to thrive. Perhaps, maybe she's just been turned by her husband's and his mother's wishes. I can only see Lady Alflad's back, shoulders rigid, where she faces the king. Her brother makes a pitiful figure in comparison. his back to me as well, but his shoulders bent on the chair he's been allowed to sit upon. He quivers with the pressure of the trial. If he could, I imagine he'd whimper, as his son does from far away. I open my mouth and then snap it shut once more. What can I do? I don't know the truth of the allegations, yet they taste like ash on my too dry tongue. It is specifics I require. The king tries. I see his eyes flickering between the two. What must he see? What must he surmise from this unexpected discord between the two? Lady Alflad is a mother now. Her child is the future king of Mercia, provided Mercia stands united and not divided against its external enemies and its internal ones. Does King Wiglaf wish to bring Kingsholm and the Quichan territory more firmly under his command? And if he does, is that through the persuasions of Lady Alflad, or would he rather use other means? Then we'll call on Ealdorman Sigurd's remaining witness. Lady Alflad is gracious, as she inclines her head to her father by marriage, who is also king. I don't miss the look of gratification on Queen Cynehild's face at her daughter by marriage's words. I don't, bowing before he's upright. I thought I had a fairly good grasp of the men and women who made Kingsholm their home, but this man's unknown. It doesn't help that I'm trying to decide who he is just from his back. His hair is long, but not unkempt, brown and uninspiring. There's no grey there. He's broad of shoulder and stands upright with a warrior's arrogance. My name's Eadbald. His words are slow and laboured. I was once a member of King Coenwulf's loyal household warriors. No, I'm not. The words hide much. Where has he been for the last decade since King Coenwulf was removed from the kingship? Has he been inside Kingsholm? And you have an eyewitness account of events? King Wiglaf's poise is assured. Perhaps I shouldn't be surprised that a man who can make decisions in the heat of battle can contend with family discord being played out before him while the great and good of Mercia watch on. I eye some of those others as they sit, avidly watching these events. I know many of them, but there are some new faces. Where, I consider, have they come from? What stone have they crawled from to seek the attention of the king or his queen or his son? I can, my lord king, for I was the one who was sent to treat with King Icbert. A gasp of outrage floods the hall, no doubt from the men and women of Kingsholm. I look to Lord Coenwulf's back, but he doesn't indicate how he takes the news. I want him to deny the words. I even seek out Edwin amongst the crowd, but he's no longer visible, having left Lord Coenwulf when he was settled on a chair. I don't believe the lies, but if Lord Coenwulf doesn't speak out for himself, then everyone else will. Lady Alflad and this man that I don't know denounce him, and with no one decrying the poisonous rumours, which I'm sure they must be, things can only go poorly for Lord Coenwulf. My Lord Coenwulf, do you have anything to say against such a statement? I don't, my Lord King. I can't believe Lord Coenwulf will allow himself to be treated in such a way. I think of Lady Cynehild. She'd not have allowed her husband to conspire against Mercia. I'm sure of it. But what can I do? I know nothing. Then tell me, Eadbald, where did you seek out King Icbert in Wessex? My Lord King, the man queries. I nod along with King Wiglaf's determination to get to the truth. Queen Cynehild's face is mutinous for a moment, until she remembers to clear it up. I notice that she stills her son's hand on the chair beside her. His unease is evident. I travelled to Winchester, my Lord King. Eadbald doesn't even hesitate. King Wiglaf is far from done. And what did you think of Winchester, my good man? This could almost be two men talking over ale, not discussing the life of another, and whether or not treason was intended. Is it like Tamworth, filled with churches? Of course it is, my Lord King. Many churches in Winchester, all of them raised To our Heavenly Father." I see Bishop Athelwild nod, as though he expected as much, despite the people of Wessex being enemies of Mercia. "And they're dedicated to St. Peter, as our church in Tamworth, or St. Chad, as our church in Lichfield?" My Lord King," Eadbald stumbles, and now I fix my gaze on Bishop Athelwild. He's also seated on the dais, but further from the king. Does he know the dedications of the churches in Winchester? Does he know to whom the people there pray? Will he mouth those words to Eadbald? I'm convinced Eadbald has never been to Winchester. I can't imagine any man walking into Wessex-held territory when Mercia and Wessex are acknowledged enemies.